The first story I wanted to cover is about a guy named Rick Wiles. Now, I've talked about him a few times before, but I want to catch you up on who he is before we actually get into the article that I want to read. The article I want to read is titled, Rick Wiles, the vaccine contains an egg that hatches into a synthetic parasite, written by Beth Stoneburner on the Friendly Atheist website. So let me give you a little refresher on who this guy is. This clip came out mid-October 2019. Give this a listen.
If they take him out, there's going to be violence in America. That's all there is to it.
Obviously, they're talking about Donald Trump here. If they take Donald Trump out of the presidency, there's going to be violence, according to him.
However he leaves, there's going to be violence in America. And I believe there are people in this country, veterans. There are cowboys.
Cowboys? Okay, interesting. There are cowboys in this country.
Mountain men. I mean, guys that know how to fight. Okay? And they're going to make a decision that the people that did this to Donald Trump are not going to get away with it.
You know, if this wasn't so sad, it would be entertaining. I have to say, it's entertaining anyways, even though what we're watching here is actual stochastic terrorism. I talked about stochastic terrorism earlier, the public demonization of a person or group resulting in the incitement of a violent act, which is statistically probable, but whose specifics can't be predicted. I said this example earlier, but Bill O'Reilly set his sights on this doctor named Dr. Tiller. He was an abortion doctor years ago, and he just slandered the guy and talked about him constantly until one day one of Bill O'Reilly's listeners showed up to Dr. Tiller's office, waited for him to close down for the night, and walk out into the parking lot. And he killed him, just like that. I heart dogs. Tiller was killed while attending church. I appreciate the correction. That was my mistake. I thought he was killed in the parking lot. I will put that in the clip when I finally release it. That is a prime example of stochastic terrorism. And that is exactly what this guy here is doing. What Rick Wiles is doing. Does he recognize that that's what he's doing? Probably not. Does he care? Certainly not. He revels in this kind of mindset. It's disturbing. Let's keep listening.
Once hell breaks loose, if these people in Washington think that they're going to get away with it, it's not going to happen. The Trump supporters are going to hunt them down. It's going to happen. And this country is going to be plunged into darkness. And they brought it upon themselves.
Sounds familiar. This country will be plunged into darkness. You guys remember Chuck Norris saying that shit? Or maybe his wife said it. Supposedly it was a quote from Reagan. But he was basically saying if Obama wins the next election, then the country will be plunged into darkness for 1,000 years. They're unhinged from reality. Seriously. I can't even see them from where we're sitting. But not only are they unhinged from reality, but they are full-blown stochastic terrorists. Like, they're engaging in stochastic terrorism here, and it should be concerning. On the other hand, this guy is endlessly entertaining because he kind of trips over himself constantly and sticks his foot in his mouth and says things like prophesies things from God that don't come true, and then he is forced to either continue the lie, like, oh, just keep waiting, you'll see, just keep waiting, and he does that for like months at a time. Or he just pretends it never happened at all. Pretend he never said anything about it. I mean, we've seen a lot of that on this channel, from like Kat Kerr, Robin Bullock, and a bunch of other pastors, predicting that Trump would be the president again, and they just couldn't give it up. You see the same shit from this guy. But fascinatingly, May 3rd, 2021 is when this next clip came out. This was his take on the vaccine before, okay? So the guy eventually caught COVID, and we're going to talk about that, but before we get there, give this a listen. See what he has to say about the vaccine back in May.
I'm going to be vaccinated.
I join you in that.
I'm going to be one of the survivors.
One of the survivors? Okay, one of the survivors. So right off the bat, he's kind of subtly claiming that the vaccine, like, is going to take people out. Kind of reminds me of this clip. You guys remember this? Guy's trying to bribe his daughter to not take the vaccine.
You don't, but I don't know what else to do.
You didn't do this to Michael and Kelsey. They already got it.
Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I know that? What do you think? I'm fucking crazy. Your mother got it. Why do you think I'm fucking crazy? My family is gone. My family is gone. By the end of this flu season, most of you will be dead. What the fuck do you expect me to be?
This guy is buying into what Rick Wiles and others have to say about this. It's so hard to relate to their arguments because they're so out of touch with reality. Take several steps back, and I still can't see where you are. Let's keep listening to Rick Wiles tell us that he's going to be a survivor.
I'm going to be one of the survivors. I'm going to survive the genocide. I am not going to allow the COVID maniacs to convince me to be vaccinated or vaccinate me against my will. I know what I'm reading. I know what I'm seeing. There is a mass death campaign underway right now.
Yeah, it's called COVID-19. It's killing a lot of people. And your ass could help us dig our way out of this as a species by getting vaccinated. Instead, he chooses to fearmonger about it and make shit up. You know, I don't even know if he's making shit up. Maybe he genuinely really believes these things and he heard them somewhere else. In fact, I do think that he believes this stuff to the bottom of his heart. He is terribly, horrifically wrong about what he believes, but bear with me. It gets worse. After he put this clip out, he actually got COVID. He caught it. And it swept through his entire staff at True News. Remember, this dude's a pastor. I've actually talked about Lauren Witzke before on this channel. That's her right in the middle, Lauren Witzke. And Milo Yiannopoulos on the right. How about that? This is June 2021, early June, right after Rick Wiles caught COVID. He finally came back to the studio and started hosting shows again. This is like one of his first episodes back.
There is a medical mafia in this country.
He sounds weaker right off the bat. You can tell his voice is like wispy and higher to some degree. He didn't handle it well. He was asking for prayers.
There is a medical mafia in this country. I'm suggesting the CCP agents in America struck at me because I am calling for Fauci to be arrested and interrogated.
He thinks that Chinese agents work inside the U.S. in the government, and they struck at him by giving him COVID. Fascinating. That is a fascinating theory that he has there. It's built on so many false premises, I'm not sure which one to address first. Why do you think that China gives a shit about you? Or me? They aren't paying attention to that. They're fighting the U.S. in other ways, like through trade wars and things like that. They're just trying to get the economic upper hand. But he thinks that China is going around to, like, conspiracy theorist evangelical news shows and trying to hurt them because they're talking bad about him? Like, give me a break.
Because I am calling for Fauci to be arrested and interrogated. Listen to me, I mean this with all my heart. If the China Communist Party is not stopped, most Americans may be dead in the next 5 years.
He is so deep in conspiracy land. Oh my God. It started out, he didn't actually believe that it was a thing at all, COVID. He didn't believe that it was real in the first place. And eventually, as time went on, he went through the standard cycle of people to blame. It was the Jews, it's China, so on and so forth. The standard shit, you know. Here we are. I guess he's settled on the idea that it's China, and they're actually going around, like, injecting it into people with, like, little tiny needles, just slip by and poke him with it or something, and give him COVID. Instead of the far more plausible possibility that maybe there really is a worldwide pandemic that everybody is struggling with, and your ass wasn't careful enough. He had to have known that he was more susceptible to this than most, right? I mean, his age and the fact that he didn't give a shit, was refusing to wear masks, was refusing to get vaccinated and all that stuff. He had to have known that when COVID came around, he was going to get hit with it, and it was going to be rough. You would think, but this guy seems to live in his own delusion. So there are 2 new clips, brand new basically, just came out this past month. I wanted to give him a watch, see what he had to say for himself. This first one came out mid-October 2021, so let's give this a watch and see what he had to say for himself.
This is a global coup d'etat by the most evil cabal of people on the planet.
By the way, the word cabal is a dog whistle? I don't think dog whistle is the right word. It's a trigger word, maybe? I don't know. It's a subtle call out to QAnon. They use certain specific words and numbers and things like that to kind of call out to their fellow people. Loaded language and cliches. For example, they absolutely love the number 17 because Q is the 17th letter in the alphabet. They try to fit the number 17 in everywhere they possibly can, which makes it kind of fascinating that Trump keeps confusing the 1918 pandemic with the 1917 pandemic. I mean, who knows if he's doing that intentionally or not? Who knows? The point is, the Storm, 17, Cabal, all of these things are subtle references to the QAnon movement. Let's keep listening.
The most evil cabal of people on the planet in the history of mankind. And if it is not stopped in the very near future, they will win. That's what's at stake, control of the world. They're putting eggs in people's bodies. If you didn't see yesterday's True News, you need to watch it. It's an egg that hatches into a synthetic parasite.
Okay, this is beyond most of the things that he's said in the past. Like, he says some real unhinged shit, but this is a step past it. There is a synthetic parasite that hatches out of an egg. Seriously, I'm in this position once again where there are so many false premises to this that I don't know which one to pick first. This is fucking bizarre.
To a synthetic parasite and grows inside your body. This is like a sci-fi nightmare.
And the fact that it seems like a sci-fi nightmare didn't ring any alarm bells to you that maybe you're incorrect about this? I can tell you there's no proof of this at all. Zero proof that this is the case. But an interesting fact about conspiracy theorists is everything is used to back up their preconceived notions. What they already believe, they view as fact. If you find evidence against what you already believe, you say it was planted by the deep state, by the cabal, because they want you to believe that this is a lie. If you find no evidence at all, that's evidence in itself. The cabal or the deep state are just covering their tracks too well. So there's another clip came out shortly after that, I think like a week after, somewhere in there. Let's give that one a watch and see what he had to say.
It is not a vaccine.
It's an operating system.
It's an operating system.
Like Windows 10? Like OS X? That kind of thing?
It is a symptom suppressor, but more than anything else, it is changing your DNA.
It's a symptom suppressor. Okay, so I guess that means that the vaccine does work. Is that him telling us that the vaccine does work? I guess he's telling us that it's a trade-off. It works. It suppresses symptoms, which is ridiculous. That's not how vaccines work at all. But again, this guy's claiming that it's like a technical thing, like a piece of technology that like hatches into a synthetic parasite. How much can we take his word for any of this here?
I don't have anything against polio vaccines, measles vaccines. Those are vaccines. This is not a vaccine.
Okay, so he doesn't have a problem with vaccines as a technology, I guess. The fundamental idea behind it is okay, but he says this isn't a vaccine. Fascinating. Okay, is there any evidence for that at all? I will not accept the premise that mRNA vaccines are not vaccines. They are, in fact, vaccines, and they work perfectly fine. That being said, if you don't like mRNA for some stupid, unreasonable reason, I guess you could go with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, right? That is the traditional vaccine, basically made in the same way that they made the polio vaccine, or similar. They use similar processes for the polio one. There's no problem with Johnson & Johnson, right? Is mRNA your only problem with it? Because that seems to be it.
I don't have anything against polio vaccines, measles vaccines. Those are vaccines. This is not a vaccine.
Yes, it is. I just need to set the record straight. Yes, it is. And no, it is not modifying your DNA.
This is changing your DNA. The mRNA, it's a messenger RNA vaccine. It's not I hate calling it a vaccine. It's a term they put on it. But it takes control of your DNA.
I really wish I knew where he was getting this stuff. A while back, I covered this article on Real Raw News. Never heard of them before, but, I came across this article, Hillary Clinton hanged at Gitmo. There are a bunch like this. It's a fake news website, is what this is. Basically, every article you find on here is fake. Massive flight cancellations due to vaccine deaths. Not true. It's completely fabricated. Military convicts Chelsea Clinton. What? Hillary Clinton's daughter was convicted? I would be willing to bet that this is where Rick Wiles got this information, was from a website like this, Real Raw News. Full-blown fake news website. This is the kind of website that you see getting passed around on Facebook by, an older generation, is this type of place. Michael Baxter. You can actually look him up on Twitter. He says some real interesting shit on there. How do we break the mind control and the fake news cycle that this guy has engaged himself in? How do we break them out of this? This is a problem. When you have big, well-known megachurch pastors spreading this kind of thing, it's a problem. Let's keep listening.
You will never be the same person that you were before you got vaccinated. They're putting something in you that changes your body. And this is the beginning. They're not going to go back in time after this. It's going to be one after another. Every year there's going to be more messenger RNA vaccines that you're going to be mandated to receive. They're changing the inner structure of the human body.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It is from hell itself. Yeah. And I can't comprehend these pansy preachers that are endorsing it. God have mercy on your souls for what you men are doing. This is Satan himself bringing forth a diabolical scheme to alter the creation of mankind from Genesis. This is an evil, wicked scheme.
The sad thing about this is that this guy, I think, genuinely, deeply, to the bottom of his heart, believes this. I know some megachurch pastors are full of it, and they're just kind of grifting, doing it just because they get money for it or whatever. This guy seems sincere to me, and that sincerity shines through to his audience. His listeners love him and believes he has special insight into these matters that they don't have, special knowledge that they don't have access to. They believe that God is giving him access to special information, and he's disseminating it to everybody around him. They read that sincerity and that fear, and they incorporate it into their own lives. This is exactly how this shit is spreading, and we need to find a way to cut it off at the source.